A warm welcome to everyone, and thank you for joining us on the second and final day of our inaugural Food Systems Forum. I'm Cindy Lim, Executive Director of Sustainability and Agricultural Impact at Pinduoduo. Earlier this week, the FAO and other international organizations just issued the 2021 State of Food Security and Nutrition in the World report, which revealed that world hunger increased last year, worsened by the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, one of the suggested pathways to respond and transform food systems is scaling up climate resilience across food systems, a topic we explored yesterday with our AgTech panel and which we'll also touch upon today. We'll have a panel of experts from China discussing how China is paving the way for a more sustainable food system. As the largest producer, importer, and exporter of many food commodities, developments in China's food system will have global implications. We'll also dive deeper into cultivated proteins, which offer us a potential path for more distributed and less resource-intensive production of meat. We'll then hear from some of the world's top investors in the field about the investment opportunities in agri and food tech and how we can make these advancements a reality. To kick things off, we'll have Bruce Friedrich, co-founder and executive director of the Good Food Institute, which is an international nonprofit building a sustainable, healthy, and just global food system. Bruce oversees GFI's global strategy to ensure that GFI is maximally effective at implementing programs that deliver mission-focused results. Bruce is a TED Fellow, Y Combinator alum, and popular speaker on food innovation. Take it away, Bruce.
All right, I am delighted to be presenting to you today. The title of my talk, as you can see on the screen, is Alternative Proteins, Mobilizing Key Stakeholders to Build a More Sustainable Food System. So the first thing we need to get clear about is what is wrong with our current food system. And the thing that I am going to be talking about is what is wrong with the way that we produce meat and what we can do about it. So there are at least three significant costs associated with the way that we produce meat today. The first one is environmental. The second one has to do with global poverty and malnutrition. And the third one has to do with global health. So climate and ecosystems. The way that we produce meat today is extraordinarily inefficient. So chicken is the most efficient animal at turning crops into meat. And according to the World Resources Institute, it takes 9 calories fed to a chicken to get 1 calorie back out. What that means is that chicken, again, the most efficient animal at turning crops into meat, requires 9 times as much land, 9 times as much water, 9 times as many pesticides and herbicides. And it's not just that. You have to ship all of those crops to a feed mill. You have to operate the feed mill. You have to ship the feed to the farm. You have to operate the farm, ship the animals to the abattoir, operate the abattoir. It is multiple extra stages of gas guzzling, pollution spewing vehicles. It's multiple extra energy intensive and polluting factories, as well as just the rank inefficiency of growing lots and lots of crops to feed them to animals. It is bad for the climate. It's bad for global ecosystems. It requires an amazing amount of land. Environmentally, it is a bad way of producing meat. The second one is intuitive. If you're paying attention to the inefficiency of growing crops to feed them to animals, in a global marketplace, something that requires 9 to 40 times for cattle, that is 40 calories in to get 1 calorie back out, 9 to 40 times the resources is a horrible way to try to feed close to 10 billion people by 2050. And then finally, global health. More than 70% of antibiotics produced globally are fed to farm animals. And it is also a significant pandemic risk, which I will chat about a little bit in a couple of slides. So what's the solution? Is the solution to tell everybody to eat less meat? Well, I will say that global health experts, environmentalists, and animal protectionists have been telling people to eat less meat literally every single year for 50 years, since Diet for a Small Planet came out 50 years ago this year. And this is what is happening with global meat production. the United Nations says that we are going to need to produce twice as much meat by 2050 as we are producing now. If we stay on this trajectory, most of that meat is in developing economies. Convincing people to eat less meat is not even working in Europe and North America, where education is most advanced. It is very hard to imagine how it suddenly starts working elsewhere. And the reason for this is that physiological needs are systems one thinking. As economies get more wealthy, people simply eat less meat. So eat more meat, excuse me. Daniel Kahneman, the Nobel laureate in economics, he talks about systems one thinking and systems two thinking. He says that physiological needs are systems one thinking. People, if they have the capacity to eat more meat, they simply will eat more meat as long as it is delicious and reasonably priced, delicious and they can afford it. So the solution, we think, at the Good Food Institute is to compete with industrial animal meat on its own terms. So everything in meat also exists in plants. Meat is made up of lipids, aminos, minerals, and water. That is all meat is. We can do that with plants. We can take plants, we can biomimic the precise meat experience. So this is not veggie burgers and veggie nuggets for vegetarians. This is using food technology. It's hiring tissue engineers and chemical engineers and meat scientists and mechanical engineers and figuring out how to create the exact meat experience, but using plants. Because it is so much more efficient, as it scales up, it should cost less. So you will have something that tastes the same or better and that costs the same or less. The same basic argument exists for cultivating meat in cultivators, essentially. That's what you see on the left. Looks an awful lot like a beer brewery. Chicken is the quickest animal at getting from coming out of the shell to slaughter weight. It takes 6 to 7 weeks to grow a chicken to slaughter weight. If you cultivate the cells directly, you can get that same growth in 6 days, a far more efficient process. From a climate standpoint, you're talking about for the sort of quintessential plant-based meat products, you're talking about requiring a 20th of the land. The life cycle analysis for Beyond didn't look at land use, but it's probably roughly the same, about a 20th of the land of a conventional burger. 90%, so a 10th of the climate change. For the Beyond Burger, 1/100th of the water. For the Impossible Burger, about a 9th of the water usage. And the thing to say about this is that this is now, while these products are in their infancy. As the products scale up, you will see these numbers get better and better. Cultivated meat is similar. For cultivated beef, a 20th of the land and about 1/11th of the climate change. Huge positive benefits for chicken and pork as well. It is literally impossible that the governments of the world meet their obligations under the Paris Agreement to keep climate change below 1.5 degrees Celsius relative to pre-industrial levels. And unless conventional meat consumption goes down, nobody has a theory for how that happens other than giving consumers everything that they like about meat, but doing it with plants or cultivating with cells. Similarly, antimicrobial resistance, the former head of the World Health Organization has talked about how the end of antibiotics working is the end of modern medicine. We are on a collision course with precisely that. If we use plant-based meat and cultivated meat, we can take the risk of our food causing antibiotic resistance from significant to zero, because again, 70 to 80% of antibiotics produced globally are given to farm animals, not to sick human beings. Similarly, pandemic prevention, the UN Environment Program released this report last July, Preventing the Next Pandemic. The most likely cause of the next pandemic is increased meat consumption. The second most likely cause is factory farming. The seventh is climate change. Most of these are linked to how we produce meat today. With plant-based and cultivated meat, you can take the risk of your food causing the next pandemic from significant to zero. At the Good Food Institute, this is what we are focused on in terms of the focus of this talk, getting together to solve these problems. GFI focuses on science and technology. we focus on policy, we focus on industry. With regard to science and technology, the goal is to get as many scientists with relevant knowledge across plant biology or meat science or tissue engineering or recombinant proteins, pretty much anything that fits as biotechnology or plant sciences or mechanical engineering, putting the products together. We need those scientists, and we need researchers at all of the top universities for all of these fields focused on making meat from plants and cultivating meat from cells. GFI's global battle cry. So we have more than 100 team members in 6 regions. We have GFI Brazil, GFI India, GFI Israel, GFI Europe, out of both Brussels and London, and GFI APAC, primarily out of Singapore. And then we have a consultancy that we work with, GFI Consultancy, out of China. Our organizational battle cry is that governments should be supporting this transition as a part of their Paris Agreement obligations, and also to ensure that antibiotics keep working and to prevent the next pandemic. So reaching out to policymakers and creating alliances with policymakers, as well as alliances with NGOs that are focused on biotechnology, climate, and global health. And then industry. The meat industry and the food industry, they have noble goals. They want to feed as many people globally as possible, food that is life-giving for a profit. That's what capitalism looks like. At GFI, we have partnerships with the big corporations, with entrepreneurs, and with investors, all focused on creating transformation of the global food system rather than disruption of the global food system. So some of the activities that we have done on the policy front include focusing on government funding, cultivated meat regulatory approval, and advocating for fair public policy. We have monthly webinars for scientists, the science of alternative proteins. We have a collaborative researcher directory, a GFI DIAs community, a whole bunch of different things focused on scientists. Similarly, GFI operates as a bit of a think tank for industry. We have a monthly webinar, The Business of Alt Protein, that complements the science of alt protein. We have a conference that we hope many of you will come to, September 22nd to 24th. It is online this year, making it super accessible. And the last thing to say is the world is on fire. We need all hands on deck to put it out. That is why these collaborations are so critically important. Folks can keep up with everything that GFI is doing by visiting gfi.org/newsletters. You can follow me on Twitter at Bruce G. Friedrich, the Good Food Institute at Good Food Inst. So at GFI, we are really thrilled to have been invited to participate and wish all of you well in creating a new global food revolution. We are at your disposal to work together to make that happen. Thank you so much.